All right, we are on still in the section one and the nature of the intuition. Just let me confirm that here real quick. Yeah, I'm sorry. The nature of intuition, the nature of glamour is what we're talking about, and we're getting into the fact that it is this is an unhealthy emanations for which the masses of men for millions of years are responsible. So we've got a lot to deal with on our plate, ultimately. And we're going to keep going here. I would point out to you that in Lemurian days, glamour and illusion were relatively unknown from the human standpoint. There were no mental reactions and but little emotional response to environment. Men were largely instinctual animals. Glamour began to be found in Atlantean days, and since that time has steadily precipitated until today, when the hierarchy looks at humanity, it appears to be walking in a deep and constantly changing density of currents which hide and distort and which swirl around the sons of men and prevent their seeing the light as it is. It's like we just kept adding to it, and it's built up, and we need to start dissipating it or dispelling it. This is all the more obvious when it is remembered that the other kingdoms of nature are relatively free from glamour and delusion. In our race, the Aryan, the world illusion is gathering weight and slowly emerging into recognition in the human consciousness, and this is a real point gained, for that which is recognized can then be intelligently handled if the will to do so exists. Today, illusion is so potent that few people whose minds are in any way developed but are controlled by these vast illusory thought forms, which have their roots and draw their life from the lower personality life and desire nature of the masses. All right, let me start that over. I did not read that line correctly. Today, illusion is so potent that few people whose minds are in any way developed but are controlled by these vast illusory thought forms. I'm going to read it wrong again. Few people's whose minds are development have their roots and draw their life. I'm just going to keep going here because I'm not going to read that correctly for some reason. I keep going back over it and it's not going to come out in proper sentence form for me for whatever reason. Few people whose minds are in any way developed but are controlled by these vast illusory thought forms, which have their roots and draw their life from the lower personality life and desired nature of the masses of men. It is interesting to remember also in connection with our Aryan race that these thought forms draw their vitality also from the realm of ideas, but of ideas wrongly intuited and grasped and forced to serve the selfish purposes of men. Their forms have been brought into activity by the steadily growing creative power of mankind and have been subordinated to the wishes of men through the use of language with its power to limit and distort. The illusion is also precipitated more potently than would otherwise be the case by the effort of many devoted idealistic men to impose these distorted thought forms upon the mental bodies of the masses. So now it's compounded essentially at that point, right? We come up with this idea and we feel so strongly and fanatically about it or so sixth ray about it that we must absolutely convince everybody of it, right? And this constitutes one of the major problems with which the hierarchy today has to concern itself. It is also one of the first factors which a master has to consider in connection with any aspirant and disciple. Well, that's interesting. It's also one of the first factors. So, okay, so that why? Why is that one of the first factors which a master has to consider in connection with any aspirant or disciple? Because they want to, potentially don't want to reveal something that can be distorted and held on to and made to be pressed on others essentially, and can do more harm than good. Glamour, as we have seen, is of more ancient standing and of earlier emergence than is illusion. It has little in it of the mental quality and is the major factor controlling the majority. And remember, glamour is of more ancient standing and of earlier emergence than is illusion, because this was astral. And then illusion is mental. It has little in it of the mental quality. The objective of all training given on the path of discipleship and up to the third initiation is to induce that clear thinking which will render the disciple free from illusion and give to him that emotional stability and poise which gives no room for the entrance of any of the world glamour. Fair enough. Pretty cut and dry there. This freedom becomes possible when there is in the aspirant no personal glamour and no deliberately self-induced response to the determining factors which have produced glamour down the ages. With these factors, we will later deal. Maya is the result of both glamour and illusion. It connotes, when present, an integrated personality, and therefore the capacity to tune in on mental illusion and astral glamour. Where this condition is found, the problem of the disciple is one of the greatest in the world. What constitutes the prime difficulty of any disciple is the fact that the battleground of his life involves every aspect of his nature. The whole man is involved. Technically, the word Maya should only be used in two cases. One, in reference to the united glamour illusion to which a man who has integrated personality responds. And in speaking of the limitations of the planetary logos of our planet. I see it like this is like Maya is a wrapping, and we said that kind of yesterday. It's like what wraps all this together. And I still see it like that. I don't know how you see it. I would be interested to hear, but that's how I see it. In the above remarks, I have given you much food for thought, not only as regards your own personal problems, for all of you are subject to these conditions, but I have also indicated to you what is the nature of glamour. The word is used in all esoteric books and teaching to cover the conditions which are differentiated under the words Maya, illusion, and glamour itself. Later, I will give you some teaching upon the causes of glamour and the methods of its dissipation. But I have given you here enough for the present, for it is my desire that you ponder upon these ideas during the next few months and learn somewhat of the significance of these words, which you so lightly use, illusion and Maya. And we do. We use them lightly in our own foolishness, because until after after whatever initiation it might be, and they say the illusion goes all the way through to the sixth initiation of, even as masters are subject to some of it, but that illusion itself would be looked upon as a great success by us, the fact that they're using that illusion, but nevertheless, it's still there. And we, any of us that haven't made it to the third initiation, it appears, or fourth initiation, we're still heavily subject to illusion. And if we're talking about it, we're probably, if we're not talking about it in our own beingness and how we're going to dissipate it, and in this matter, we're probably being foolish. That's what I think he's saying there. That's what it's saying to me again. Watch yourselves in your daily life with discrimination so that you learn to distinguish between glamour, illusion, and Maya. See whether you can discover the form which your individual dweller upon the threshold is likely to assume as you come into conflict with it. And if you do the same for your group brothers and the immediate world need, you will lose no time in the work of your astral clarification and mental release. And that's the goal, astral and mental release. Crisis, tension, and emergence, as we've talked about in the other books. And we're all looking forward to emergence. I would ask you to study these instructions with peculiar care, for I am taking the time and trouble these busy days to meet your need and to bring as much light as I can without infringing your free will to meet your need and clear your course to service. I would suggest also that you find out all that you can anent the much misunderstood subject of the aura. Doesn't that seem to come together right immediately as he says it, as we think of Maya as the wrapping, and then now we're talking about the aura, right? Very quickly here. So it does hint towards what's, the possibilities here. Search out what is said in my books and in the writings extant in any good occult library. I seek no copying out of paragraphs, but a formulation of your knowledge so that you can answer clearly questions which might be asked. The following 3 questions are basic. What is the aura and how does it come into existence? How can the aura be made the medium of light and the light which should shine through it be intensified? Have you noticed what is in the effect which your own individual aura is making upon your environment, and how can you improve that effect? This will enable you to make practical application of that which I seek to teach you. Forget not that as you look out upon the world and your immediate environment, that you look out through your aura and have therefore to deal with glamour and illusion. We look out through our own aura. Wow, is that not powerful? That is, I love hearing something that I don't remember having ever heard before, and it just hitting you that right way. That's just incredible. It's what I needed probably to hear today. It just really brought a bunch of things together that we've been talking about. There are 3 further questions which you might put to yourself facing the issue in the light of your soul. Do I suffer primarily from glamour or from illusion? Do I know which quality or characteristic in my nature facilitates my tuning in on the world glamour or the world illusion? Have I reached a point where I can recognize my peculiar dweller on the threshold? And can I state what form it takes? That you may indeed, as individuals and also as a group, learn the meaning of true self-knowledge and so learn to stand in spiritual being, increasingly free from glamour and illusion, is the prayer of your friend and brother who has fought his way through to a greater measure of light. So he knows, what we're saying here is he knows the fight is on, and he's calling it, legitimately the battleground, because he had just, he remembers the experience of it. He recalls it, and it's being used, and it was likely well documented. And I think this is, this material is said to be in the library of Shambhala, and that's where this information comes from. So this documentation that we're reading here, this is intense and truth. During the past 6 months, 4 members of this group of students have been fighting glamour in their own individual lives, and for the most part, successfully. I make reference to this because in any experimental group such as this, it is well to anticipate such a situation. Such wrestling will naturally occur because only that which is experimentally known becomes a true content of the equipment of the disciple. Earlier, I referred to the fact that part of the plan of the hierarchy embraces the starting of small groups, such as this one, which would have the definite objective of providing the active means whereby the world glamour, today so potent and deep, can be dissipated. The time has not yet come for dealing with the world delusion on a large scale, for the race is not adequately mental, nor has the illusion reached its height. Nor has the illusion, which is, as he stated preeminently, the result of misinterpretation of ideas, reached its height. But the hour has struck for the first steps to be taken in the dissipation of glamour, and the hold of glamour upon the race should be appreciably lessened in the future. Hence the practical training now being given in this group in their own lives, hence also the intended teaching later to be given to the group if they measure up to the opportunity, which will enable them to aid in the concerted and planned attack upon the world glamour. Wrestle therefore with your personal problems along these lines, my brothers, for in this way you will gain facility and discernment in clear, precise action and in strength and understanding. And now, just for a minute, I would like to touch on something briefly. We have to recognize the power that these books absolutely do have. These books are known not just by the White Lodge, right? These books have been read by all on both sides of the fence, and it's very much used against the world and humanity from the opposing team, if you will. Hence the difficulty in even getting to this material. And even when you do get to this material, struggling initially with whether or not this material is good, or which side of the lines it falls on. And that's an interesting thing, because it's very well protected, and for good reason. But it is also used against humanity, and as we saw here. And the reason I mentioned that is this will enable them to aid in a concerted and planned attack upon the world glamour. So when we know that there's, glamour is kind of getting to the point on the astral plane where we can start waging war against it, you best believe that the polarity of that is going to be waging that war just as, if not harder than it will be on this side. And it will be preemptive, because from the opposing side, and it will just become incredibly strong, and it will make things much more difficult, because it's said in these polarity, as far as polarity is concerned, as much spiritual growth is available, there's the opposite end of that, where that much potential, I guess you could say, evil is also going to be happening at the same time. So the spectrum moves. It's it'll, for as much peace as there is, there will be there will be violence, essentially, as the process is being come as this is coming together and being transformed, transmuted, transfigured, however we want to look at it. So let's keep going here. In the process of dissipating glamour, the way of the greatest potency is to realize the necessity to act purely as a channel for the energy of the soul. If the disciple can make right alignment and consequent contact with the soul, the results show as increased light. This light pours down and irradiates not only the mind, but the brain consciousness as well. He sees the situation more clearly. He realizes the facts of the case as against his vain imaginings. He realizes the facts of the case as against his vain, and so the light shines upon his way. He is not yet able to see truly in the larger sleeps of consciousness, the group glamour, and of course, the world glamour remain to him as yet a binding and bewildering mystery, but his own immediate way begins to clear, and he stands relatively free from the fog of his ancient and distorted emotional miasmas. Alignment, contact with his soul, and then steadfastness are the keynote to success. It will therefore be apparent to you that small groups such as this, if established in different countries and cities, and if successful in their personal activities, can play a most useful part. Such groups would have two aspects to their endeavor. They would have to wrestle with group glamour, which creeps inevitably into group life through the instrumentality of the group members. Their united personal glamours provide the open door through which group glamour can enter. An instance of this can be seen in this group when glamour entered in through the medium of the LTSK and swept IBS into its vortex of force. I guess we're talking potentially about individuals here. It was overcome, fortunately, leaving you all the richer and more united on account of the strong stand in love taken by other group members. May I remind LTSK and IBS of their deep indebtedness to the love of their brothers. The group love protected them. IBS has gone a long way in freeing herself from certain aspects of glamour. LTSK is also freer than he was, but still has much to do. It is always difficult for the third-rate person to cultivate the intuition. The apparently profound wisdom of the manipulative and devious science of the intelligence inherent in matter prevents oft the entrance of the true wisdom of the illumined mind. The apparently profound wisdom of the manipulative and devious science of the intelligence inherent in matter prevents oft the entrance of the true wisdom of the illumined mind. So there's a glamour there when we, and that's probably very Neptunian or Neptune-like, I'm guessing, where you tend to believe what's not true, and you're basing that on the fact, on your own intelligence. right? And maybe it's even relatively true, but not in a higher way, not in an illumined way. It's not true. Six months ago, I felt that it was probably impossible for LTSK to free himself from the glamour in which he habitually walked. Today, a little more light shines upon his way, and he may, if he frees himself still further from his self-generated thought forms, make the needed grade. When group glamour has been somewhat dissipated, and the group can walk in the lighted way with freedom, then will come the time when the group can be trained in group alignment, group contact, and group steadfastness. It can then begin the definite and scientific task of attacking the world glamour. Now, it's, DK talks in many places about group work, but it's referred to as being, not having been hugely successful. There's been problems with it. Now, that's not to say that these problems would still be prevalent today. It's just that's how it was then. And we're dealing on glamour. If you think about your friends and who is our associates, and try to imagine, we becoming, giving ourselves wholly to some work, and then just you can probably see the hindrances that are going to come up from that, and how the personalities, and some personalities would get in the way. Somebody wants to take charge, somebody has this view and won't let it go, and then there's and maybe this is ourself too. We have our own issues, but we all bring something to the table, but we have to get past ourselves. It is of interest in this particular group to be reminded that this is part of the activity now being undertaken by certain people in the new group of world servers. Through the emphasis in the world of certain basic ideas such as goodwill and mutual interdependence, much is being done to dissipate the glamour in which the people of the world are walking. It is not the function of every server to form part of the massed attack upon the world glamour, which is now getting underway. Everyone has to deal with glamour in his own personal life, but functions and activities differ. Yours is the work of the trained observers, and that training takes much time. At present, many of you do not recognize glamour when it meets you and envelops you. It is only by its effects that you eventually know it for what it is. The time must come when your processes of observation are so keen that you will recognize it in its true nature before it immerses and engulfs you and produces those conditions which enable you to say later, why did I allow myself to be glamored? Why was I so deluded? And this is something this is the human condition. There's no reason to get down on it. I certainly am experience this and experiencing it currently, where I can look back and see, like, why did I allow that? How did this happen? And now it's all about making conscious and correct decisions in each moment, and it's just being more aware as this moves, as we're moving. It's just being more aware and not really letting anything slip in, not letting a Scorpio energy slither in and delude what I'm working on here, essentially. At this point, I desire to do two things. I seek to outline a little more carefully this discussion or short treatise on glamour so that our ideas may be clearly formulated, and you will have a textbook for future reference, which will serve to guide your group and analogous groups in a way of right activity. Secondly, I wish to recapitulate somewhat those things which I have already stated so as to enrich your understanding of the various phases of the world glamour. This world glamour, the analytical mind has to differentiate into distinctive phases, calling them illusion, glamour, Maya, and that synthetic thought form. Found on the path of discipleship, which is in some esoteric schools called the dweller on the threshold, which we've covered all these things. And this is why it's important to keep hearing these things over and over and over again and putting them into context in our own beingness and really contemplating through these things. And I'm not saying that I have a perfect, that I have worked through all illusion. That is not true. And I know this to be the case. And we're working through it and doing this work here and in studying and in contemplating and in observing and being aware. This is what is allowing us to get through the illusion, which the last illusion is, is what we're looking at with these eyeballs, as far as I understand, and that is incredibly deep. Let me see for a second. Let's just take a look, because we covered quite a bit today. Just want to see how much. Yeah, I'm not gonna keep going too much further here. We're not going to get through this section today. But I will finish this. Next paragraph. As you will see from this, my brothers, we have set ourselves a large theme which must be very carefully handled. My task is a difficult one because I write for those who are still held by the varying aspects of glamour, and usually by the secondary glamour and Maya. Illusion does not yet fully play its part, and the dweller is seldom adequately realized. I would here remind you of a stupendous occult fact and will ask you to endeavor to understand that whereof I speak, the dweller on the threshold does not emerge out of the fog of illusion and of glamour until the disciple is nearing the gates of life. Only when he can catch dim glimpses of the portal of initiation and an occasional flash of light from the angel of the presence who stands waiting beside that door can he come to grips with the principle of duality, which is embodied for him in the dweller and the angel. Do you comprehend that whereof I speak? As yet, my words embody for you symbolically a future condition and event. So precise, isn't it? Just, I mean, it's not even like, this is for you. It's going to be for you. This is going to happen for you. Either it happened or it's going to happen. The day will surely come, however, when you will stand in full awareness between these symbols of the pairs of opposites, with the angel on the right and the dweller on the left. May strength then be given to you to drive straight forward between these two opponents who have for long ages waged warfare in the field of your life. And so may you enter into that presence where the two are seen as one and not as known, but life and deity. In summarizing some of the information I have given to you concerning the four aspects of glamour, I would offer the following tabulation for your careful consideration. 1, a dawning sense of Maya arose in Lemurian days, but there was no real glamour and or illusion. 2, glamour arose in early Atlantean days. 3, illusion arose among advanced human beings in later Atlantean days, and will be a controlling factor in our Aryan race. 4, the dweller on the threshold arrives at full potency at the end of this race, the Aryan, and in the lives of all initiates prior to taking the third initiation. 5, the subhuman kingdoms in nature are free from glamour and illusion, but are immersed in the world Maya. 6, the Buddha and his 900 arhats struck the first blow at the world glamour when he promulgated his 4 noble truths. Surely. The Christ struck the second blow with his teaching of the nature of individual responsibility and of brotherhood. The next blow will be struck by the new group of world servers, acting under the direction of Christ and his disciples, symbolically described as Christ and his 9,000 initiates. The 4 keynotes to the solution of the problem of glamour are intuition, illumination, inspiration, and the angel of the presence. Oh, this just keeps going. So I am going to leave it there for today because we did learn a lot. And we're going to ponder on these things. We're going to ponder again on, on glamour and astral plane and how we get, how the personality, gets pulled into that, into these desirous roles, if you will, of some sort, and then how illusion is really misinterpreting what's true. And then I am going to ponder the fact that I'm looking out of my own aura and all the implications of that. So that'll be the keynote for my day today. And I hope you have, your own revelations and deep contemplations. And we will get back on this again tomorrow. All right. Thanks. Have a good one.